Salut tout le monde! What up? Ici Mad Kaiser. Embrions-vous dans ma critique des Clair Obscur Expedition 33?
Yes, I know French.
Hey everyone! What up? Mad Kaiser here, and welcome to my review for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which is already out now for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Xbox Game Pass, and PC. Special thanks to the wonderful people at Guillotine and Sanford Games for providing me with a review code for PlayStation 5, which was arguably for one of, if not my most anticipated game for this year. And, without any sugarcoating, it is a peak RPG experience. And in this review, I'm going to explain why it is peak, and why y'all RPG fans need to play it. But before we begin, if you're not going to see any hint, by all means, like the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, and hit the notification icon if you want more RPG reviews from yours truly. And with that, let's get back to the video. And so, let's ready our weapons, fly across a big, gigantic balloon creature, and go on to the greatest expedition of our lives, as tomorrow comes, when we head straight into Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So our story is set in the world of Lumiere, where every year, the Paintress, a powerful yet unknown entity, wakes up and paints a number upon a monolith. And on that day, everyone who has that age turns to smoke and fades away. Straight up final snapped.
Should have gone for the head.
With year by year, that number ticks down and more people die. So, our main hero, Gustave, led by others like Mael, Lune and Ciel, assembled to become the Avengers. Sorry, I mean Expedition 33, but essentially that's what they are. And if you don't believe me, just look at our main lead here. Together, they go down on a dangerous journey to destroy the Paintress, to stop this vicious cycle of death. And along the way, they'll come across new allies, enemies, and other expeditioners that were on that same journey but also failed, while also finding some rather intriguing moments here and there. And that is the story. And man, this story, hoo boy! If you're not a fan of the words here, like peak fiction, goat, raw, fire, click off the review right now. Wait, I don't actually mean it. In all seriousness though, the story is really damn good, from both the premise to the actual execution, with having lots of shocking twists and turns here and there, among also having some really impactful moments that hit hard, like driving a French lorry over a row of bricks. Among that, the world building, especially through both the dialogue, the journals, and past expeditioners, as well as the characters themselves, just makes this overall world feel both engaging and very fascinating to learn about. Whether it's things like on how the fantastical gestures operate through life and death, or how Lumiere was actually originally split into two, or the remnants of these fading people, among also having themes centered around, like the meaning of life, as well as asking questions like, is it okay to bring your newborns into a world that's essentially cursed? Or are you willing to continue even if one of your own that you're attached to falls? Hence the term, when one falls, we continue, being the motto that the expeditioners have. But what really helps with the strong narrative here is three things, that being tone, pacing, and characters. Tone-wise, this game is really dark, moody, and atmospheric, as well as mature, with some really creepy, melancholic, and gut-wrenching moments here and there. But it's all completely balanced with having lots of levity and fun banter, where it's things like Gustave here being sort of like a dad-like figure, and a massive guy failure at that.
Get out of my way!
Jeez,
No, it's just it's the password.
As well as you have some really wholesome and funny moments with SK here, who by the way is so damn adorable that I would love to give him a big hug. And of course, who can forget the banter between Verso and Monoko himself?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fights.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 Yes, good.
So overall, this experience doesn't become entirely woo, but instead it becomes more wee. It overall makes the dark moments hit hard, and that's a result of the strong levity it does have. Next topic we have is the pacing, as a bulk of the cutscenes here are really well paced here, that don't drag. The overall story structure of this game is really paced well, so it does not waste your time even, as each moment in the story truly matters here in the overall narrative, as each location reveals more about its world, people, or even provides a rather interesting plot point or plot twist. And then lastly, we get to the characters, as all of them are really likable with their own distinct personalities, motives, flaws, and all have really good banter and back and forth moments here in discussing, and as they feel sort of like a family, while still having the occasional conflict that makes the tension and drama feel natural, and overall makes these characters feel relatable. Whether it's things like Gustav being a father figure and caring about Maëlle, or Maëlle herself wanting to experience life outside of Lumiere, as well as being traumatized, as well as Lune herself being fascinated with these gesturals, among also being the most analytical of the group. And then we also have Ciel, who's both the emotional glue that holds the team together, while also being optimistic and burdened with loss herself, among also Verso and Monoko themselves, having their very own traits that make you sympathize with them. They are all amazing characters here, and made me really feel for them. And both the side characters like say SK and the Gesturals are really all entertaining and very written strongly here, as much as the core cast and also the villains themselves, in which the villains in this are really compelling, with having very understandable motives and justifications, even if the actions they do make are completely wrong here. And all of it is really perfectly encapsulated by the just exquisite voice acting. Seriously, this game has some phenomenal voice work, with everyone giving a magnificent performance, providing overall life to the characters, with huge A-listers, like you got Charlie Cox here, Matt frickin' Daredevil Murdoch as Gustav, and then you also have Jennifer English, straight out of Shoutout Baldur's Gate 3 fame, as Maëlle, and then you have the man, the mythos, and the baby girl himself, Ben Starr, Clive Rossfield from Final Fantasy 16 as Verso.
Sorry you're caught in the middle, but I did try to warn you.
Careful, Whitey! That's a banana skin.
Overall, the story for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is absolute cinema. Now we get on to the visuals, and man, this game looks absolutely beautiful. Using Unreal Engine 5 to great effect here, like this here is art. It belongs in a museum. The graphics and the art direction here are on top form, showing a high level of fidelity that's really on par with some of the best looking AAA games in the industry. What's ironic is that this game isn't really even a AAA game, as it's actually a more so a AA game, and albeit a very high quality AA game. And yes, I've played a good share of high quality AA games in the past. Yes, Colin Lack, that does include Falcom. You happy?
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
But this game, visually, it hits different and really shows. The characters, the world, the music and levels, they all look really good, with lots of very beautiful environments, among also having some really just stunning visuals. This level here, called the Flying Waters, just had me in awe of how beautiful it looks, as well as you even have these amazing bosses from the Nevrons, all of them that look really unique and really Eldritch Abomination amazing. Honestly, these enemies just look absolutely sick. Even the use of things like cutscenes here that use these black bars among the occasional black and white filter really wowed me. And the more impressive thing about it is that all of it is in real time from the engine. No fancy CGI FMVs or anything. This is all in real time from the game's engine, and that's really impressive. Even the animations here with its own mocap, or even the battle animations, and some of these boss fights here that has these cinematic moments here look absolutely epic. You see, Colin Lack? This is how you can make a cinematic game without being boring. Anywho, as for performance, despite this running on a rather contentious engine, it actually does run silky smooth at a very good 60 FPS, and rarely did I experience any frame drops or any shutters. Pardon with maybe a few lip sync issues here, but still, for a first outing, especially using this engine, it's really damn impressive. So we then move on to the combat. Now, just like with a lot of RPGs, the combat usually starts on the field, with this game having you the option to shoot at enemies and stun them, or completely run away. Now for the actual combat, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a turn-based RPG, with having 3 active party members and having similar conventions of other turn-based games, from having a timeline showing the turn order of both your party and your enemies, as well as commands for both your attack, skills and items, the usual stuff, with having your attacks being standard and your skills costing AP, which is what you get from doing things like regular attacks and other various methods, which I'll get to in a bit. And each skill, whether it's a powerful attack or even a buff, provides a quick time event, where a golden line will appear showing at the end of the QTE, and hitting that line will give you a much better result and a perfect one, while missing it will still provide a decent result. It's similar to the things you see in games like say Super Mario RPG or even Lost Odyssey. And you also have your weapon to shoot at enemies, just like No, not again! Anyway, you can use your weapon to shoot at enemies, which is handy against flying enemies or even enemies that have certain weak spots or shields. Now all the stuff you get to do on your turn is pretty good, but what you get to do on the enemy's turn is where this game really shines here. When an enemy attacks you, you have the option to either dodge or parry against them, but you really have to counter their attacks at the right time or you'll get hit. When it comes to dodging, you get to evade their attacks with gaining a few bit of invincibility frames, but with parry, you get to block their attacks, reducing the attack to 0. Though, if you block at the right time, you get to parry and counter attack, dealing a good amount of damage here, and doing these successfully here will provide you with AP. You also come across new mechanics, like jumping against enemy attacks that will glow yellow, and can even do counter attacks in that state as well, or gradient counters, where enemies will use gradient attacks that shift to this grey attack, and parrying them will provide a gradient counter with a devastating flow here, among also using gradient skills yourself that will do a lot of damage.
Now that's a lot of damage!
And this, my friends, is where Expedition 33 truly stands out from its contemporaries that it even took inspiration from, with also the addition of these mechanics making the overall gameplay feel both engaging but also strategic, but also makes both encounters both thrilling and challenging, as it's all about learning from every enemy's own unique attack patterns and when they strike, with your best friends being here being both the sound cues and animations. And chances are, you will die a lot, but if you're willing to engage with the mechanics and be skilled enough to use them, you plow through these encounters like a champ. And speaking of mechanics, this game is great with how robust the RPG mechanics are, from having things like both a skill tree to get new abilities, as well as increasing your character's stats and attributes from your choice, and the Piece de Resistance being both the Pictos and Lumina, with Pictos being abilities you get to equip to each character, giving various buffs like things like healing after a counterattack, dealing more than the original damage cap, or even inducing fire every time you shoot. But what's really great here is that after you use them a lot in battle, that Lumina can be learned, and if you have enough points, you can permanently gain those benefits without even having to equip those Pictos. And there's no limit of how many Luminas you can earn. Coupled with equipping various weapons that have their own various unique effects, character being both distinct with the very mechanics that stand out from the traditional archetypes that you will also see in love RPGs, all provides a really deep RPG experience. I do wish, however, that the menu was a little bit more intuitive, and there was also an option to have more various amounts of loadouts here to save, so it can be a little bit more convenient of which builds I want to choose. But I digress here. Even the bosses themselves here are really great, being just as challenging as regular enemies. And each enemy also has cool mechanics, and there's just a genuine sense of joy in memorizing each of their attack patterns. Well, there you go, Night Sky Prince. I said it. Also, not gonna lie, fam, some of these do feel like they came straight out of Dark Souls themselves.
Just like Dark Souls!
Man, I milked that meme to death at this point, haven't I? But it's true, even coming to a point where you can even rest at flags that will respawn enemies. So, it's basically turn-based Dark Souls. Now normally, this will be the point where I point out the flaws in the combat. But outside of maybe the occasional things on how some bosses will have a lot of attack combos and how much you need to parry before it becomes your turn, and I do think I would have loved to have the option to switch between Pi members mid-battle, but still, regarding the combat and the overall mechanics, it's near perfection in my eyes, and it's easily one of the best turn-based combat systems I have ever played. Moving on to exploration, Clair Obscur goes for a more sublinear approach with its levels, with having 2 to 3 alternate pathways, some of which will involve platforming and grapple points, where you get to use your zip towards higher points, and there you'll be able to find things like new equipment, special enemies, or expedition journals. However, there's no minimap to show on where you need to go, and to be honest, I kinda like that, as it does encourage you to figure things out and have a chance to explore and get better with your surroundings. Now, while exploring the levels themselves is really cool, the world map is where it's really at here, as Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has a full-fledged world map that once was a thing with the early SNES to PS1 to early PS2 era of JRPGs, and while this feature hasn't by any means gone or left, but this, my friends, is the first time we've seen an RPG world map with high-level modern graphics in a very long time. And here, it's really detailed, with having lots of new areas to explore, with SK here, with SK being both your mount, where you can both swim, and later, fly. And it's really impressive on seeing various amount of optional areas, bosses, and secrets. Really, it's c'est magnifique. When it comes to the music, good lord, the soundtrack is... I'm actually at the loss of words here. It's borderline cinema. It's that good. With composer Lauren Testard, who, fun fact, was founded by the devs through SoundCloud, alongside singers like Alice Duport-Percier, and, straight out of Devil May Cry 5 fame, the singer for Bury the Light, Victor Borba himself, providing a score that, in my opinion, deserves best soundtrack of 2025, with lots of tracks here, suiting both the levels, bosses, sad, and joyful themes, using a mixture of both violins, pianos, and even epic guitars and techno, and jazz instruments, on top of the singers here singing all in French. And again, it's very beautiful. And I'm really thrilled for you guys to get a preview of this, cause honestly, y'all need to listen to it. It's that good. Now we get on to the content. So Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has a lot of optional content, with things like doing the side quests with helping these white Nevrons here, as well as finding the lost gestuals for rewards, bonding with your own party members, so not only can you learn more about them, but also gain new grading attacks for them, among also fighting against the many optional super bosses the game throws at you, as well as having both a New Game Plus and 2 different endings to obtain, as well as also mini-games in the gestural beaches. That involves platforming, and totally doesn't want to make you rip your hair out every time you fail. Okay, maybe there is one thing wrong with its gameplay. Anyway, a standard run for this game by itself, especially for the story, will take you around 25 to 30 hours. While doing all the extra content, we'll double it, which to me is absolutely perfect, with the former being suited for those who care more about the story and want to get through the end, as well as for the latter being perfect for completionists who want to squeeze every single hour of doing all the content here. As Thanos would say, perfectly balanced, as everything should be. So, with my usual rambling, and I know what many people say in the comments, my possible glazing of this game, but I'm sorry, I honestly can't help it. I just can't really describe on how just utterly fantastic Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is. Everything from the visuals, the story, the characters, the gameplay, the music, the attention to detail, the effort put into this game, especially from a team that has roughly 33 people. Well, actually 32 people, with the one extra person being a dog named Monoko, just like the character. And oh, look at him, oh, he's so cute. Among also the fact that obviously they did have some outsourced partners involved in this, but even still, this being their very first game and costing about a reasonable price for $50 US, that honestly, my friends, is a huge bargain, especially for an RPG that once again, as I mentioned, has sold 3.3 million copies in the last 33 days of its release. I'm not even kidding at the fact that actually happened. That's actually amazing. Among also gained a 92 on Metacritic, and it's scoring a user score of 9.7, which is actually the highest a game has ever scored in terms of users on Metacritic. You know what? I actually finally understand of what Colin Lack meant about supporting a brand new IP, like he did with Metaphor Refantasio. Man, I'm actually talking a lot about him. maybe you should, I don't know, subscribe to him? Now sure, there are still some issues and maybe some refinements that could definitely be patched up or potentially refined in either a DLC or sequel if they want to. But even still, with the issues it does has, the game still has a lot of pros that absolutely just smash the cons that it does have. And overall, gave me an experience that I'll never forget. It's one I'll gladly remember and made me think about every single time. I honestly hadn't had an experience like this since, holy crap, since Nier Automata back in 2018, and that was actually my first gateway to JRPGs even. So that actually alone says a lot here. Overall, I'm going to give Clair Obscur Expedition 33 5 SKAs out of 5. And I by all means highly recommend it to anyone. Whether you love RPGs or haven't got into them, it's absolutely amazing. And it's already available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, even Xbox Game Pass and PC. And that, my friends, will be the end of that. Thanks again to Guillotine and Sandfall Games for the code, and thanks to Kepler and Sandfall for making a masterpiece. And thank you all for watching my review. You guys are absolutely wonderful. And just before we wrap up, I want to give a special shout and mention to YouTuber Spectre799. He's an absolutely amazing guy who makes lots of amazing content here, especially his love letters to certain games, like with Hi-Fi Rush, Alan Wake 2, or even Elden Ring, or even the likes of Helldivers 2, and of course Marvel Rivals, and Baldur's Gate 3, which he did a collab with. He's absolutely amazing, and honestly, he is definitely worth watching. Like, I absolutely highly recommend his content. You guys should totally check it out. So please subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. And with that said, let me know down in the comments if you guys played this game yourself and what do you think of it. Special thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Until then, Mad Kaiser out.